Hey everybody, it's Gail of Giving Back with Gail, and on this week's vlog, I'm going to tell you all about my volunteer experience in Paris. It was amazing, just like I knew it would be, and it's a reminder that you can volunteer abroad, have a really great time, and not spend any extra money to do it or spend any extra time. It can actually be a part of your vacation. So stick around, I'll tell you all about how I did it. Okay, so I'm sure that you guys all watched last week's vlog, right? Right? I'm sure you're nodding at home right now or wherever you are watching this because I just know you guys all watched the vlog, right? Even if you didn't, I'm gonna say that you did. It makes me feel better. But if you didn't, shame on you, first of all. Just know that last week's vlog was all about me telling you how you could volunteer abroad, just like I had done on previous visits to Paris that I had done during my travels. And I explained how I did it, and I hopefully inspired some people to go out there and do a little research on their own so they could also volunteer while they were abroad. So that was last week's in preparation for this week, because this week I'm actually back from my travels to Paris, my third visit there, because I love, love, love that city so much. And I was able to volunteer again while I was there. So as I told you last week, I did a Google search a couple years ago and found a couple organizations that I could volunteer with. So last time I volunteered at the American Church in Paris and did a sit-down dinner for some of their elderly residents who were like living check to check. Now the other organization that I had contacted during my first connection with Paris was Serve the City Paris. And I wasn't able to volunteer with them the first time I was there, but I was able to volunteer with them this time. And I gotta say, I was just really, really excited because they made it really easy to volunteer. Unlike the other version of volunteering with the American Church in Paris, where you have to kind of keep your volunteer group small, this kind of varies with Serve the City Paris, because what they do is they get together a couple times a week and they take the extra sandwiches and coffee and food from a local pastry shop, and the name of which is kind of escaping me right now, so I apologize, and they distribute it to the people on the street. So it allows for a little bit more flexibility. So just to volunteer with them, all I had to do was go to their meetup group and say that I was going, and that was it. And it was as simple as that. So when I got to Paris, and so again, as I tell you this story, I want to remind you that I volunteered as a part of my vacation. It's not like I had to go there and volunteer all 5 days, which of course there's nothing wrong with that, and those are wonderful programs you can do. But I want to inspire you to incorporate volunteering into your vacation just as you would any other way to connect with the city that you're visiting, And I think that volunteering and giving back when you're in another country is a wonderful way to connect with locals, get a sense of the language, and really get a sense of the place that you're visiting. So it's another wonderful plus to your traveling experience. So I arrived on the 3rd, and my volunteering with them, and I believe it was a Wednesday, I didn't volunteer with them until that Saturday. So I had other things planned. I had a couple Airbnb experiences and things planned for tours around the city. I did some sleeping because, time differences and all that fun stuff. But the reason I mention this is that I got there on Wednesday, I did all the things I was doing as part of my holiday, and then on Saturday I woke up that morning because that's when they were giving out the sandwiches. I woke up, got my map together, and then went to the coffee shop that they all meet. Now, the beauty of, I think, living in New York was, the wonderful thing is I had gotten lost on the subways and stuff here. So when I got to Paris, taking the train was really simple for me, and I was really grateful for that. And so that Saturday morning, I got on the train. I do the weekly when I'm there because it's easier and it's more cost effective. And I was there during the week, so it made much more sense. And so I've got a little Navgo that I use when I get there. I got on the train. I met at the coffee shop. And I think the funniest thing about traveling and volunteering is sometimes you may not know the language, right? But we know we're both human and we both know how to communicate in some way or another. It always seems to work out. Have you noticed that? Because I have, especially with giving back. And so I got there a little before everyone else did. And the lady saw me, and I clearly looked a little bit not quite sure where I was, and she was just like, they usually sit over here. Because the beauty of like them going to the same place each time is that if there are people who look a little bit confused and not sure where to go, the people at the coffee shop, who are so generous, by the way, basically give them a certain spot that allow them to set up shop, once or twice a week, which is really, really lovely, I think. And I'm going to make sure to put the name of the coffee shop in the information below so that we can kind of give them a little bit of shout out, because I think it's really lovely that they actually allow for that. So I got there, as I was waiting, people started to come in. Tom and Katie, who serve the city Paris, were so lovely. They got in. There's a lot of expats that were showing up, actually, from a lady from Texas, I believe. Actually, Katie, who is British, and she now lives in France, and then Tom. And so it was just a lot of wonderful energy. And the thing about like giving back and collecting surplus food is there's an ebb and a flow to it, because sometimes there'll be a lot of excess food from a shop or a restaurant, and sometimes there won't be because they make all their food fresh that day, and so people will just buy it. And so it's kind of a give or take. So that day that we went, it turns out that I believe it's Pret a Manger, which I'm thinking I'm not saying that correctly, but that is the shop that actually is what gives them their extra surplus food. That day didn't have as much as they normally would have had, but they had some. So to balance that out, what they do is they'll make sandwiches in addition to that. So what we did was we all sat down. Tom went out and got some of the extra supplies, and we're waiting for him. I got a chance to talk to Katie and some other ladies are around. I got a chance to know them, talked about my nonprofit, got to talk about giving back with Gail, got a chance to really connect with people on that level. And I think that's also the wonderful thing about giving back abroad, right? A wonderful way for you as an expat to feel connected is to give back, right? Because it's much more of the American culture to give back. So when you're in a place that's not, doesn't have the same volunteer culture, you can create it because you've got the American culture that's all about voluntourism, and the American version of that. And then you can take that and bring it to wherever you're going to serve, which is really great. So, and I mentioned that only because later on I had a discussion with one of the team leads, and we were discussing how the culture of volunteerism is just different in Paris than it would be like in the States and other places. So that's the only reason I mentioned it, not to be dismissive of other countries, but just that the cultures of giving back is just different depending on where you are. And it's a learning lesson for me to learn that, because I kind of made an assumption that everywhere would be like this space of like, of course you give back. But some people and some cultures don't necessarily feel the same way. And so that was a learning lesson for me, and I'm grateful to have learned it. So I got a chance to talk to different people and get a sense of kind of how Paris differs from here in the States. And then when Tom came back, we basically all got together and we made sandwiches. And nothing like fancy, right? It was bread and some cheese and some turkey. And it was a little bit of a conveyor belt and all hands on deck. But another way to get a chance to connect with people and really get a sense of what we were working for, and making sure there's food people who were out there on the street. In addition to that, there was the surplus food was like yogurts and some sandwiches, and I think a couple of pastries as well. So it was nice to get a chance to see all the things that were able to be donated that they had in excess, and then realize that were you able to like make up for that with the sandwiches that they were creating. And so that day, because I do like to take pictures and I wanted to share some pictures with you of my experience, I did make sure that I asked them if they were okay with me taking pictures, and they were. So I was kind of their social media person of the day. But it was also a wonderful reminder for them that they need to take more pictures. And that's something they said to each other. They're like, oh yeah, we need to be more conscious of that. Because the thing about going back and volunteering and getting people to come over and support you in your volunteer work is people need to see what's happening, right? And so in as much as like I'll post and give back with Gail on Instagram and the like, a lot of times when I do volunteer, I do take pictures so that you can see, all right, here's what that experience looks like. Here's what it looks like to be able to like give back in this way. Here's what it looks like to volunteer and do this. So I think that being able to upload things to social media as for more of a visceral experience for people who are thinking, should I try this? Okay, now I've seen how it is. I'm much more inclined to do it because I'm on the fence a little bit, but now I won't be because I've seen kind of what goes on, which is really nice. So that day I pulled out my camera, I took some pictures. We finished the sandwiches pretty quickly because there were quite a few hands on deck. And then we left and went outside. We took a team picture, a group picture. And then we left out and went in two groups. So the group that I went to went towards the bathhouses that actually quite a few people who were staying on the streets go to, and so we just walked down that to that way. Which Katie knew the way, and she knew the area obviously because she's the team lead. And so as we're walking, we're getting to know each other better, and we're talking and getting a sense of the area. And I don't really know how to explain without getting a little choked up how it just feels to be of service. And I think the part of the reason that I love volunteering when I'm abroad is that it's a reminder that people are in need no matter where you are, and that you can give and be of service no matter where you are. And I cannot speak the language and still give back. And that just touches my heart, because that just speaks to the humanity in each of us. Well, we're just human, right? I see a need in you. You see a service in me, and then we meet, and it's a good thing. And so I was just really grateful to be there and to be a part, and to really be like welcomed in by the team leads of Serve the City Paris, because they do a really amazing job, and they're really dedicated, and they're looking to grow and expand and take on more and do more, and they're looking for more sponsorships and people to help them out financially. So I'm hoping in the future to work with them to help them get more to get them the more help sponsorship wise for this wonderful, wonderful nonprofit. So, but more on that later. So we walked basically down to where the bathhouses were, and we basically walked up, and there were like maybe 10 to 15 men standing outside, and then more men came out as I noticed that we were giving away sandwiches. I skipped in the story. Sorry, started thinking, forgot one part of the story. On the way to the bathhouse, there were some men on the street just past where we were at the coffee house, and we stopped by. And the beauty of it is Katie knows French, which is great, and also she's learning, which was helpful for me because she gave me some encouragement that actually I want to learn French. I'm currently learning French. That it's possible, because it feels a little harder than I want it to be sometimes. Anyway. This is a little meandering, but I'm excited about it, and I'm telling a story, so I hope you don't mind. So we first saw some men sitting on the side, on the streets on their way to the bathhouses, and so we came up and gave them sandwiches. Some of them were very flirty, and luckily I think Katie understood it, but the rest of us didn't. So she was like, making sure that she was setting her boundaries and not getting too offended by them. But they were like, they're just being funny, right? So they took a couple sandwiches. We didn't have any coffee that day. They were asking about coffee, but we did have sandwiches, and they took those, and they were happy to have those, and we were happy to share with them as we walked to the bathhouse. All right, cut to, that's the filmmaker in me, cut to the bathhouse, and there are like 10 or 15 guys out there, and we hand out the sandwiches. And I think, again, what's interesting about serving in other places is that you get to see how similar we are, right? So if you've ever done any kind of service, food service and the like, you'll realize that people are still people, right? I can want to give you a turkey sandwich, but if you're like, I don't like turkey and I only want ham, you're going to let me know that, right? And so someone might say, well, if you don't have anything to eat, why don't you take my turkey? Why do you insist on ham? But no matter where you are and what your station is in life, you want what you want. Right? And it just makes sense. We shouldn't assume people should only take what they can get because we have it to offer. I think it's an assumption people make a lot of time when they're being of service in regards to food. But people are still human, right? Like you still want things that give you comfort and things that like fill you up. So maybe ham is what makes you happy, and having that sandwich reminds you of being a kid. I don't know what it is, right? But maybe you don't want the turkey. So the same thing happened in Paris that has happened to me dozens of times, more than dozens of times here in the States. And this guy was like, yeah, I need this kind of like sandwich, and I was like, we didn't have that, but it's very much like a human thing, right? You want what you want, no matter what language you speak, no matter where you live, no matter what you're being offered. It's just a human thing to want what you want, and we should not assume that someone doesn't want it or just wants what we have because they're in need. They're still very much human and still definitely like what they like. So I always love those ways of connecting and reminding ourselves of that. So we gave out literally all the food we had at the bathhouse because there were so many guys there. And again, we didn't have as much of a surplus as they might have on other days. So we were able to give out the sandwiches that we made, the extra sandwiches we had from Pret a Manger. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. And some yogurts and a couple pastries and the like. And by the time we were done, it took about 20 minutes and then that was it. And that was like the extent of it, you know? And so we all walked away. A couple of guys wanted to kind of get into a political conversation. We kind of steered away from that because that wasn't what we were there for. But I think some of the guys just wanted to kind of, you know, talk. But it was also very cold that day as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were honoring their need to get inside, as we also need to like make sure that we were feeling okay and bundled up. So it wasn't like, I also want to remind you that when you're of service somewhere, I think sometimes you think it's just this all-encompassing thing. I was of service that day for roughly like a couple of hours, and I was blocked, I think, for like 3 hours, but we got done a little bit earlier. It's really simple to go and be of service, and it doesn't have to take your whole day. And I'm not saying that if you wanted to take your whole day you can't, but I want to remind you that sometimes you can just be of service in a couple hours and still be able to shine your light and do your good, and then still go on with the rest of your day because you've got time at that point, you know. And I just want to remind you that it's the beauty of that is like you can incorporate it into your life without making it your whole holiday, your whole vacation, if that's not something you're intending for anyway. So after we gave out the food, I continued walking with one other expat and then the team lead, and we just had a really lovely talk about what they're trying to do with Serve the City and how they're trying to grow, and we discussed ways that I could possibly help them in terms of volunteer retention, which is what my expertise is in. And finding ways to make sure that they are shining their organization's light in the best way possible so they can get funding that's consistent and volunteers that are consistent, because that's really what makes or breaks a nonprofit, right? Do you have consistent volunteers and do you have consistent funding? Like that's pretty much the baseline of like a really basic nonprofit that's going to stand the test of time, you know. And so we talked about that, and it was just really lovely just having a conversation. We walked down the street, and then she gave more of a sense of what the volunteer culture was like in Paris, explaining that a lot of their services are paid for with their taxes, and so they're less inclined to want to go out and be of service in the same way we would be, because they're just like, well, the government's taking all my taxes, they should handle all that. And so they're more inclined to think of their service in terms of like financially already doing it via their taxes. And so I was actually like, I didn't realize that, you know. And so that's a lesson that I had, like, okay, I guess I understand if someone thinks like you're taking, I don't know what the percentage is in France of my money, and that's supposed to go towards like feeding this and doing that. Why am I gonna get up on a Saturday and go meet at a coffee shop and hand out sandwiches, you know? And so she was explaining to me that that's kind of the mentality. And so it's not as easy to find volunteers there, which is why a lot of their volunteers are expats from other places where the volunteer culture is different. And so you just get a different sense of what volunteering looks like in different places. And so I really appreciated that education. And so then I put out a charge to my friends and via Give Back with Gail that if anyone knew any expats in Paris who were looking to give back, Serve the City Paris is a great way to start, because they're definitely looking for consistent volunteers and people who are more prone to be part of the volunteer culture that we have here in the States. So that was a wonderful way for me to go ahead and put the charge out to those people that I knew. And I'm also asking you to, well, if you know anyone who's an expat in Paris who's looking to volunteer and give back, please let them know about Serve the City Paris, because they're looking for volunteers still, and consistent volunteers which is what we all really want. So it was an amazing time, me volunteering in Paris, and my second time doing so, and it just got me more excited about finding ways to link up with other organizations who were more fluid in allowing for volunteers to drop in, give back, and not necessarily have such a large dedicated amount of time and consistent commitment, because you want to make it part of your holiday but not all of your holiday. And so now I want to work on making that possible, because I think it'd be great for another way to connect with an organization and connect with an area that you're visiting and really get to know it by giving back, you know. So you go to Spain and there's an organization that, you know, wants you to help with like maintaining a library. You just come in, you help organize a library, you get a chance to talk with some of the locals, you get a sense of what it's like to be in Spain, and then you go on with the rest of your holiday. Like it's a win-win because it allows for a fluidity of like volunteerism, because let's face it, a lot of nonprofits, no matter where you are in the world, don't have consistent volunteers. But if you know you've got expats or you've got someone coming from somewhere else for a holiday, you've got like your normal 10 volunteers, but you need like another 3, and me and my 3 friends haven't been coming on that particular weekend, and I've reached out to you and you know we're coming, then you're good, right? And now you've got another experience. You've got another social media opportunity to be like, here we are connecting with people from the US. Here we are connecting and doing this. You get a chance to, you know, try out the language that you've learned, if that's something you're learning as well. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to connect, to have opportunities to see the world differently, and have an opportunity to see how much more similar we are than we are apart when we travel and give back and do it all over the world. So I'm so excited. I love Paris. I love giving back in my favorite city. I love giving back anywhere around the world. And as I noted in last week's blog, I went to Colombia recently and I wasn't able to volunteer while I was there, but I connected with a gentleman who's got a nonprofit. So the next time I go back, I will be able to volunteer there. And I love to be able to say to them, you know, hey, here's another 4 or 5 friends who are coming to Colombia. They would also love to volunteer on this day. So I'm excited about the possibilities. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed my conversation about giving back in Paris. It was a little different from the last time that I did it, but equally fulfilling and really awesome. I learned so much about the volunteer experience, the volunteer culture in Paris and in France as a whole. I will continue going back to Paris. I plan on living there in the next few years because I love it so much, and I'm learning French as we speak. I'm just really inspired by the idea that no matter where you are, you can give back and you can help change the world. And that's really what Giving Back with Gail is all about. It's really what I'm all about. And I hope that this vlog has been an inspiration to you, to remind you that you can give back no matter where you are. And if you ever want to find out, like, Gail, I'm going to fly to so-and-so, is there some way I can volunteer, and you can't find it, reach out to me. Email me. I would love to help you find out. It would make me so, so happy. So let me know where you're going. Let's see if we can find a way for you to volunteer. I make no promises, but I will try my hardest to find a way for you to volunteer during your holiday that doesn't have to be your whole holiday. Because I think you can make it, it's going to be a win-win. You can incorporate it, have your holiday, give back, be of service, and still enjoy the time you have otherwise, which is, I think, a wonderful win-win. So yeah, okay. That's the vlog for this week. I appreciate you listening to my experience of volunteering in France. And as always, don't forget our Instagram page. Don't forget our Facebook page, Giving Back with Gail. I'm going to hopefully post some pictures of my whole experience as well. And trying to think of anything else. Oh no. I think that's all that I wanted to tell you guys this week. Please forgive me if I've forgotten. I might have to figure something out next time. But you know me, I love service. I love talking about it. Once you get me started, I try to warn you. It just is what it is. But I'm grateful to be here and grateful to hopefully inspire a little bit in you to help you realize you can volunteer no matter where you're on the planet. So I truly believe that you can change the world through service, and I really appreciate you guys coming along for the journey every single week. Thank you. I will see you guys next week. Bye.